I guess we'll get started in the interest of staying on schedule. Hi, glad you're all here. I'm Mary Thoreau. I'm Senior Vice President with the Independent Institute. And if you haven't stopped by our table, I hope you will. We're right outside the landmark ballroom. And Vicki will also be signing her book there following this talk. It gives me great pleasure to have this opportunity for Vicki to speak to you today. Dr. Vicki Alger is Research Fellow with the Independent Institute and author of our book, Failure, The Federal Miseducation of America's Children, and yes, that's how it's supposed to be spelled. The book is a study of the history of the U.S. Department of Education from its founding and an assessment of its results using the very metrics and goals that were established for the department to argue for it being set up. And I guess the title sort of gives away her conclusion. But in addition to just critiquing the Department of Education, importantly, as with all of our studies, Vicki's book lays out very clearly the solutions to get us to educational opportunities for every child in America. Vicki has been a tireless advocate for school choice across the country. She successfully led the effort to get education savings accounts established in Arizona, and they're now available in several other states, including Nevada, North Carolina, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Florida. And she's tirelessly traveling the country, speaking, testifying before legislatures on the issue, writing on the issue, working with policy groups, including here in Texas with the Texas Public Policy Institute, and testifying before the Texas legislature for education savings accounts here. And now we're very happy we're undertaking an ambitious initiative in California for education savings accounts. Parents want it. We think the time is right, and ideally, as California goes, so goes the nation, so we're looking forward to that. I leave it now for Dr. Alger to speak to you, and thank you, Vicki.
Oh, Mary, thank you so much. And I would like to start off by thanking you all for being here. I appreciate it so much. How often do we read our morning newspapers or check online in our news and we're hearing one bad thing after another about young people and what's going on in college campuses? And here is, I would say, the center of the universe of everything that is right with young America. So I'd like to start off with give yourselves a big hand. Thank you for being here. We're going to talk about educational freedom today, and you would think that that would be a no-brainer, right? Well, sadly, it's one of the most politicized and contentious issues in the United States today. A little bit about myself. Mary introduced me. I'm with the Independent Institute. I actually don't live in California. I am very proud to be back in Texas because I got my, oh, how many Texans do we have here, by the way? Woohoo, Texas! Yes! This is doubly special for me because I did my graduate work at the University of Dallas. So I am so happy to be having studied about liberty and now being with you all to discuss liberty in education. But I live in Arizona, which is considered ground zero for educational freedom for parents. If there is a parental choice program in the United States of America, chances are we were the first one out of the gate with it. So I am also not just an academic. This is not simply some esoteric issue for me. I am a proud Navy wife, and I have 4 stepsons, one of whom just became a Marine yesterday. Thank you. And they all go to district public schools. So this is not something that, oh, write about, this is somebody else's kids. This affects me too. I live it every day. So let's get into our topic. And by the way, I'm not going to read 37 slides to you. I promise. I wouldn't want that done to me. I will not do that to you. There's a lot of information. So don't feel as though you have to take notes or anything. If you want a copy of my presentation, my email is here. I can give you my card. So just relax, enjoy. If you have a question, just go ahead and raise your hand and let's talk about it. So educational freedom, as you can tell, I give away my conclusion. It's working. It's working for students, it's working for families, and it's working for America. And there's my book, and as you can see, I use the Common Core spelling of Misedukation. Now let's start with sort of the modern origins of parental choice. You may hear it called school choice, educational choice, parental choice. You'll notice I do not use the term school choice very often, because educational freedom is more than picking this school or that school for your child. It's a parent's rights issue, and parents have the God-given, unalienable right to educate and bring their children up as they, not government or special interests or bureaucrats, think are best. So we're talking about a parent's rights issue here. So in the modern era, over 60 years ago, we all know who Milton Friedman is, right? And don't feel bad if you don't. That's okay. We're all learning. Milton Friedman is a Nobel Prize-winning economist, but he had a radical idea. Just because we fund schools through government doesn't mean that politicians know what's best for other people's children. Woo! So that was his big radical idea. Well, what do we do if government's not running our children's education? Who's going to run it? He said, well, education spending is, like everything else, is going to be best if we use the building blocks of private initiative and private enterprise. It's the success, that's the basis of our success in the United States, isn't it? Well, why don't we apply it to education? How do we do that, though? Listen, if someone is not financially able to send their children to school, we just give them vouchers. Ooh, do we have anyone from California here? Oh, hello, oh, yes, hello. We had a pre-briefing last night in our hotel lobby. So we got all this worked out last night. So in states like California, that's the V word. We don't use voucher. It's very politically sensitive. But let's talk about why that's sensitive. So let's say you can't afford it. Rather than government telling you or assigning you a school, give parents who can't afford it a voucher and go to school. Who cares where they go to school? Let them pick their schools. Let them pick their teachers. Let them pick. Go ahead. By the way, Thomas Paine had that same idea even earlier before. So this is not a new or radical idea. Now, with parental choice, government would serve its proper function, less activity, which is always good in government, more variety in educational options, more innovation and progress from private initiative and enterprise, and you don't get that dead hand of bureaucracy, which that in itself should be enough to convince us to be on board with parental choice. Now, just to give you a sense, educational or parental choice is no longer just about voucher scholarships. And we'll get into the details about the different types of choice in a minute. But as you can see, is there anyone from Vermont or Maine here? No Vermonters or Maine? One of the best, where are you from? Oh, Massachusetts, I was born there, Taxachusetts, yay! We're tax refugees who escaped to Arizona. So you wouldn't know it, but a lot of states already have voucher programs. And I won't go through all the details, but today we have 65 private parental choice programs. Now I'm focusing on private. If you have questions about other forms, please feel free to ask. So again, to give you a sense of the scope, 32 states plus DC and Puerto Rico now have some form of private parental choice. What state is gray? Who's from Texas again? Where are my Texans? We need to get working with the Texas Public Policy Foundation and fix that. And we can talk about some of the arguments against it that don't hold water. So we're going to work on Texas. Texas will join the fold soon. And we're working, right now, you can see over just about 500,000 students now exercise private parental choice programs. And as we talk about the details, please keep in mind, the vast majority of these programs are for low-income, special needs, disadvantaged children. These are not, you know, the wealthy, the advantaged. These are largely for low-income children. That's going to be important later because we hear so many excuses about poor results or because of poor children. That's not true. So I'm just going to run through this very quickly. Vouchers are basically just scholarships that are funded by government. Okay, so we make an appropriation through government for qualified families to use the scholarship to go to the private school of their choice. Similar to that are tax credit scholarships. I'm very proud that in 1997, my home state of Arizona was the first state to enact this program. It's a scholarship, but it's funded through private donations. So here's how that would work. I make a $500 contribution to a nonprofit scholarship granting organization. I get a dollar-for-dollar credit off my state income taxes, and a child who's deserving gets a scholarship. So that's the difference. Vouchers are government appropriations. Tax credit scholarships are private donations. Now here comes my very favorite form of parental choice. Education savings accounts, or ESAs. Here's what I love about them. Unlike scholarship programs, where you can take a scholarship and go to this school or that school, think of a dedicated use debit card. So pretend this clicker is a debit card. Parents who qualify simply inform the state and say, I don't prefer a government school education for my child. I want an education savings account instead. Similar to health savings accounts. We all know what health savings accounts are, right? You know, it's a similar concept. So you get your dedicated use debit card. 90% of what the state would have sent to your child's district public school now goes into your child's education savings account. You get a handbook that explains exactly what expenses are allowable, what are not allowable, and parents go shopping. And what can they buy? You can pay for private school tuition, testing fees, special education therapy, tutoring, test preparation, all of these educational products and services. And here's the beauty part. Any leftover funds roll over to the next year for future expenses, including college tuition. Parents love it. Arizona's program had 100% parental satisfaction rating, which is understandable because parents are now completely empowered over their children's education. Here's one of the biggest reasons why we don't have more parental choice. Parents just don't know better. They're not capable of choosing their children's schools because, as we know from the giver, the elder, when people have freedom to choose, they choose wrong. That's one of the leading myths against parental choice in education. But let's break that down, shall we? First, I'd like to stop. Raise your hand if you are or plan to be a stupid parent. I don't see any hands raised. People who use that argument think that they're a perfect parent. It's all of you other people who are going to be the bad parents and make bad choices. And you know what bad choices are? Your choice is different than my choice for my child. That's what amounts to a bad parent, by the way. So let's look at this ridiculous myth from another angle, shall we? Right now, and by the way, would you look at that really fine group of folks there? That's a great group of folks. Millions of young people are now picking their schools, and they are using vouchers. They're called Pell Grants. So let's think about it. You're 18 years old, you're smart enough to use public dollars to pick your school. But then what happens? Oh, and what do we think of that? Yay! Even Hillary Clinton likes that. That's great. We should have more money for college vouchers. But what happens when we talk about a few years later when many of those 18-year-olds become parents? Ooh, bad. You're not capable anymore. This is what Hillary Clinton actually said against letting parents pick their children's schools using vouchers. Okay, the Catholic school is fine, but if we let parents go around and pick their children's school, parents might pick the Church of the White Supremacist School or the Church of the Jihadist School. I won't stand for it. I can tell you, no one is sending their children to the white supremacist school. No one is sending their children to the school of the jihad because there are laws in place, and no one's going to pay for parents to make that choice. You want to make that choice? Not on my dime, you're not. This is a wonderful lady. She's considered the mother of school choice, modern school choice. The late Wisconsin Representative Annette Polly Williams. This is a beautiful rejoinder. When First Lady Hillary Clinton moved into the White House with President Bill Clinton, They both chose a private school for their daughter, Chelsea. She went to the Sidwell Friends School, a very, very good private school in Washington, D.C. And this is what Representative Williams said. Bill and Hillary Clinton should not be the only people who live in public housing who get to send their kids to private schools. Again, the hypocrisy of parents just are incapable of picking their children's schools. Well, let's stand back now and see what we're actually spending to send children to government-run schools. The average per pupil cost, and cost in terms of we the taxpayers, is $14,000 per pupil. Multiply that by 13 years, K through 12. So that's $14,000 a year for 13 years. Wait till you see what those results are. What can you buy with $14,000? You could pay for 1 year of 4-year college, living with family, or a year of 2-year college, not living with family. So think of everything we think of in terms of academic quality and so forth at the college level. Here's what we're getting for our $14,000 per year investment in K-12 government schools. As you'll see, I break it down into students who are poor and students who are not poor. Because one of the biggest excuses we have for why we don't do better is, oh, all of the poor children. Poor children are not the reason we have bad results. It's poor education, because we don't have competition and parents are trapped. So let's look at that very quickly. And I'm just going to focus on the blue lines, the non-poor children. Whether it's reading, math, science, civics, or geography, core subjects, a majority of those students, and these are 17-year-olds, so you've had 17 years old, you're getting ready to go to college, less than half are proficient in basic subjects. And this is according to the National Assessment of Educational Progress. It's administered by the U.S. Department of Education. You may have heard it called the nation's report card. So this isn't a test that we can jigger around or play with. So half of non-poor students are not proficient in the basics. And how much have we spent by the time they've gotten there? $182,000 for that. Raise your hand if you think you're getting a good investment, a good return on your investment. No. No, we are not. Well, some people might say, well, Alger, that's not fair. That's just this year. I'm sure that's just a blip. No, it's not. Starting from 1970 to 2016, that's the latest year we have data. Look at the spending line. It's that blue line that goes all the way up. Spending has more than doubled in real terms. I'm not playing monkey business with the spending. It's inflation in real terms. That's the spending. See all those dots around the zero or below the zero? That's the percentage change in improvement in scores. So spending is up, achievement is flat. And that is since 1970. Remember what Milton Friedman said? Education spending will be the most effective if it relies on parental choice and private initiative. Was he right? Yes, he was. I'm not going to review all of the tests with you, all of the research. Suffice it to say, as of this year, there have been over 140 scientific studies examining the effects of private school parental choice on a host of things: test scores, longer-term academic achievement, civic engagement, integration, a whole host of things. And when I say scientific, I don't mean like global warming or environmental alarmist science. I mean real science, using scientific methods and so forth. So as you can see, the research is mounting, and it's too great to ignore. The majority of studies find that student test scores of school choice participants is better. And again, these are overwhelmingly disadvantaged children that the status quo tells us couldn't possibly learn. It's too hard to teach them. Baloney, they are doing much better when their parents are in charge. Again, the vast majority of tests find that students who participate in choice programs graduate from high school at higher rates, enter college at higher rates, and complete college. And I don't mean in the 6-year college completion rates that we talk about so much. They actually do better. One of the biggest fears about having private school parental choice is, well, wait a minute. What happens to the children who stay behind in government-run district schools? That's the beauty of competition. Because when dollars follow children in schools, public, private, home, everyone has to compete for children and education dollars, we spend money more efficiently. Teacher salaries go up, class sizes are smaller, all these beneficial outcomes. And not surprisingly, parental satisfaction, 100%, because you're not a trapped audience. You have choices, and you get to choose where your child goes to school. Parents are the real experts, and we see it in a whole host of other things. Civic values and practices. Integration. Fiscal effects. It's one of the toughest challenges is that, oh, we'd love to give everybody choice, but it costs too much. No, it doesn't, because scholarships, education savings accounts, are only worth a fraction of what we're already spending in government schools. So there's a net savings. In fact, what we're spending now on every choice program amounts to less than 0.5% of what we're spending on government K-12 schools. So for a fraction of the cost, we're getting better results. So what can we do to advance parental choice? The first thing to know is these are some resources I use to get statistics. EdChoice, Institute for Justice, American Federation for Children. They have great myths and answers. Share these and other resources with family, friends, and neighbors. Because one of the things that people get so frustrated about is, well, public schools would be doing better if we just had more money. Money absolutely matters. And if Mr. Alger were here, he would absolutely tell you that Mrs. Alger has no problem spending money. But it's how we spend it that matters. We need to be giving it to great teachers. We need some sort of performance pay. Parents need to be able to pick their schools and let money follow children. Share these resources and get organized. During your state legislative sessions, and get a buddy, whether you're in a prayer circle, same sort of concept. Get a buddy, get a friend. Get active on social media. And you are calling your lawmakers every single day during session. Because I can guarantee you there is not one state during any legislative session that does not have a parental choice program being run. And if you need help finding out who that is, go ahead and get in touch with me. They should be getting phone calls, emails every day. And here's an interesting story a friend who is a lawmaker told me. She said, Vicki, we obviously get, letters and group emails from the unions and opponents of parental choice. And, we take those with a grain of salt. But I got to tell you, when I get an email, I or any of my other fellow lawmakers get an email from a constituent, there's a sort of an algorithm they use. One person, one constituent, represents 6 other people because they have family and they have friends. So one email from you is like sending 6. So imagine if you got 6 friends. Imagine if you got 6 friends. And they take that seriously because you're in school, you're working, you have families, you have other responsibilities. You're not on the public dime lobbying to oppose parental choice in education. So lawmakers will take you absolutely seriously. I know this next suggestion sounds like you've got to be crazy, Alger. With everything I have to do, I don't have time to run for office or all of this. Get that out of your head. Think about this. You don't have to run for president of the United States of America this year or in a couple years or Congress. Think of your local school board. And I want to put the importance of being a school board member into perspective for you. I don't care what state or commonwealth you are from. The largest share of your state budget is going to be on K-12 education. Who decides how that money is spent? School board members. There are 2 types of school board members. There are folks who get elected to school board simply to jump off to higher office, and they're going to just ally themselves with the unions and the spend more folks. There are also really good people who feel alone we're the only ones reading budgets and saying, no, we have enough money, we're just spending it in the wrong place. So please consider running for school board, or at a minimum, form a watchdog group. Get, 6 friends. Form a social network, online. And say, okay, I'm going to get 2 people. Every month we're going to watch what our school board is going to do. Pay attention to April through June. That's when they come up with their budgets and their teacher salaries and all of that. Wait till you see where they spend it. I will bet you dollars to donuts that when they're talking about the new superintendent's salary, it's going to be well into the 6 figures. Guess how much teachers are going to get? A fraction of that, not even $50,000. So watch those things, publicize it, and I've got to tell you, there's no better disinfectant than light. Most important thing is you're not alone. Look around, all these wonderful people here. You have resources, you have a question, I'd like to do this. Get in touch with me. I'm happy to help. Get friends to get in touch. But we are not powerless. The more we can do, pay attention to the local, what's going on at the local level, the more we contact our state lawmakers, the more educational freedom we're going to have. And in conclusion, these are some resources I recommend for getting more information. The Independent Institute, Independent Women's Forum, Cato Institute, Heritage Foundation. And find your state-based think tank. Every state has a free market, pro-liberty, state-based think tank. You can find that at State Policy Network. Write them an email. Tell them, hey, I was at the Young Women's Leadership Summit, and this lady Alger told me about you. I want to get in touch. I want to help. Together, we can expand liberty and complete educational freedom for all people, no matter what your income or your address is. So that's a quick overview. If you have any questions, please shout them out. Let's talk about it. But thank you all so much. Yes.
Hi, my name is Isadora. Wow. And I am running for my local school board this year.
Yes.
Thanks. I just had a very great opportunity to be part of the fight in Boulder, Colorado for Ascent Classical Education. It's been up and down, for sure. I was just wondering any advice you could give me going into a place like Boulder, Colorado, where the cards are extremely stacked against me.
That is an excellent question, and you are to be utterly commended. First thing I would do is, when you run for office, you're going to have all sorts of people saying, oh, you're wonderful, that's great. They're not going to help. If you can identify 5 core people who are going to help you, get the word out, be active on social media. Also, you're going to have to combat a lot of myths. So one of the biggest barriers to running for office, running for school board, is people are afraid of the budgets, because it looks like a bunch of gobbledygook. I mean, who on earth, in any given state, there are about 5 people who maybe really understand how the whole school finance system works. Don't be intimidated, and I'm happy to help you interpret a budget and get information out there and put you in touch with other people who help put on school board trainings. Most important thing is know your budget. And you'll learn the acronyms like this, but know your budget, and you're going to see, where's this money going? Where's this money going? Because people want to know about the money. So I think my number 1 recommendation would be know your budget and know where to get the data. And you've got a lot of people here who can help you. And putting it into a graph, it's going to tick a lot of people off. Oh, and know your superintendent salaries down to your 8th assistant superintendent for financial streamlining. Know all those salaries. Yes, you were next, I believe.
Hi, I really enjoyed your talk. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the role of the teachers' unions and
Yes.
kind of like the political influence they hold and how they shape public opinion, and then how to kind of combat the misassumptions that are so widespread.
Can do, and that's an excellent question. And the unions, as we know, are very powerful. The 2 leading unions are the National Education Association and the American Federation for Teachers. Your state and local unions teachers' unions will likely be affiliated with one of those two groups. Now, for them, and I want to make a distinction between leadership of those unions and your rank and file teachers, because as we know, educators are not a monolithic block. It's not groupthink. I would include in that group, whether, depending on your state, parent-teacher associations or parent-teacher organizations, superintendents unions, school board unions. There's a whole, we call them alphabet soup, the alphabet soups of unions. They have a monopoly, let's face it. They've got a good gig. They're in charge. We actually spend, as a country, more on education than we do through the Department of Defense. So I know people look at me and say, that's crazy. No, it's true, and I can show you the numbers. So they have power and control. They also have their own Department of Education, although I think it's brilliant that they're so upset with, with President Trump, and now we want to get rid of the Department of Education. So they're a problem. You cannot fight them head on because they've got foot soldiers who are going to be out. They're using our own tax dollars against us. So as my husband, a retired naval officer, would say, you do guerrilla warfare. You don't do a head-to-head combat with them. But here's what you do. You run multiple versions of parental choice bills for foster care, for special needs, for low income, failing schools, unsafe schools. There's a whole, I'm a universalist, by the way. I think every child, everywhere, every time should have universal choice. But that strategy, okay, this isn't a nice name, but what we call the unions, when I was in California, we call them the blob, because they just kind of sit on everything and they defend the status quo. But the blob isn't nimble. It can't fight a battle on multiple fronts. But I also want to dial back. It's too easy to say, oh, if we didn't have those unions, everything would be fine. No, it's not. Because we often think of parental choice in terms of a partisan issue. You know, Republicans, yay, parental school choice, Democrats, boo, no. That's not how any of this really works. As we saw from my presentation, educational choice is a civil rights issue. And so you're going to get great folks on the right and the left. And I'll tell a tale out of school. One of my biggest problems testifying when people want to know about parental choice and advocating it, one of my biggest barriers are Republicans. And there are two, depending on what part of the country I am. It's Republicans who live in rural parts of the state because they get one cranky phone call from their superintendent of the one school district. They have a monopoly. They don't want to give up their monopoly in their rural area. One cranky phone call, they fold like a cheap chair in the education committees. So I wouldn't worry about that. Another lesser issue would be Republicans who are worried about how choice is going to affect the football program. Yes, Texas, I'm talking to you. There is no problem. If you have choice, you will have wonderful athletics, a whole variety of really great extracurriculars. So the unions are a problem, but I would remind you that we outnumber them. We keep calling every day. We get friends, family, and neighbors to call. We outnumber them, and politicians take us more seriously than the unions, because let's face it, they're getting paid to do this. We don't. So they're not insuperable, and I think in light of the Janus ruling, a Supreme Court ruling that unions can no longer extract dues without people's consent, what another radical concept. You're going to see their membership wane over time, so they won't be the force to be reckoned with that they are now. And yes, I'd like to go to this part of the room and then over here.
Hi there, I'm Megan. I'm from Utah. So I have probably a couple years left of college, and I'm studying to become a French teacher for high school age kids. So that's my dream. And so I'm a couple years out from there. And I hear from teachers in the public school system all the time that they hate Common Core. They hate all these policies that come in and they invade on the teacher's ability to teach. And I was wondering what advice you might have for somebody like me who is potentially going into the public education system. I don't want to feel helpless. And so what are some things that I can do from the inside that can help fight some of these policies?
Oh, and thank you for being a teacher. You deserve a round of applause. Thank you for that, and thank you for your question. Because Common Core, that is an artifact of, we've removed education so far from not just parents who are children's first educators, but our children's chosen educators. And so this is why parental choice, it's not just good for students, it's good for teachers. Think of the variety you would have when with parental choice. I think some of the biggest boons for parental choice in recent years has been Common Core and now the push for sex ed. And it's not just health class, it's pretty radical. So all of this overreach is really bringing in new constituencies to see why we need parental choice. What I would say first and foremost, and it's going to sound similar to becoming a school board member, please, please, please know your budget. Don't trust your principal. He or she may not know. You will look to the district level at a district public school. Budgets are only available to the district level. Know your budgets, know where the money's going. Guess where most of the money's going to go? Curriculum developers. It is. So what I would do first and foremost is know your budget, know where things are going, know how much money you're spending on all of this Common Core stuff. Because we put it in, guess what? We're pulling it out now. There was just a federal study, by the way, that showed that Common Core student performance is way down. And it would have been way up had we not implemented Common Core. Oh, who could have predicted this? But I would recommend having a really good relationship with your students' parents. They're likely not going to want that. You're going to have to do some covert ops. Find out which teachers on staff are kind of with you, and you're going to have to operate underground. So don't default and use the horrible, horrible books that are recommended by lobbyist groups and crony capitalists. So I think knowing your material, you can bring in really wonderful books, and hopefully teaching French, you'll escape some of it. Because I don't think Common Core tells you how you can teach a foreign language. But I would think work with people who think like you, and here's some other books that meet the requirement. We don't have to do that. And with math, hey, I'll keep guard at the door. You don't have to draw the thought bubbles. You can, just answer the math question. So that would be my advice to you, because there are a lot of teachers who think like you do. You're not alone. And let's come over here. And by the way, if I can't get to your questions, I'll stay afterwards and answer your questions. So don't feel as though, oh gosh, one and done. Yes, hello.
Hi, I'm Carrie. I'm actually a second grade teacher here in the Dallas area. I teach at a charter school. And I'm actually leaving the one I currently was in Dallas to go to a more innovative one. They're teaching Mandarin, and it's a STEM school, and Chinese. They're teaching Mandarin and Spanish, and one of the things that I like about Texas is we don't have Common Core, but yet some of the ways that we do teach math, specifically in lower grades, is the Common Core method. Like, I had to totally relearn how to add and subtract with regrouping.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
Oh, try multiplication with their little box method and all this stuff, and it confuses me. And so if I'm confused as a teacher, I can imagine how my students feel. But my thing is I have been a proponent in Texas, it's been school choice, and I worked for the Texas Land Commissioner when he was running for a thing, and I was his youth outreach and educational guru, because I was in school to be a teacher, and he always said, when you give parents a choice, you give students a chance.
Yes.
And success.
That's absolutely right.
But my question is as a teacher, in job security, how does this affect me? Because I do teach in a charter school, and I don't teach in the ISDs. I've actually taught in an ISD and left and came back to a charter school just because I enjoy parents wanting their kids to be with me. And then I have another question: how do you tackle the issue of performance pay? I was in a district where I should have gotten performance pay, but because the principal didn't like me, even though my test scores were up, I didn't get it. And that was a big chunk of change that I didn't get.
Yeah, Texas had one of the premier ones. But two very important questions. Let me tackle how does choice impact teachers and job security first, and then we'll get to merit pay. Each of those could be their own breakout sessions. So let's go to teachers and choice. I love the fact that you talked about, I moved to a more innovative charter school. My, 3 of my 4 stepsons are school age. They go to district public schools. When I used to be a board member on, a charter school board member of one of the most successful, well, the most successful in the country. And I'd love it when they would move right next to my kids' schools. Yay! Because I remember, well, Mom, we can't learn Spanish in Arizona because that's just too innovative. A great charter school moved next door, and my 7th graders got to learn Mandarin because the charter school was doing Mandarin, so they brought in Spanish and Mandarin. So I live competition working. Think of that feeling you have moving to the more innovative, cutting-edge charter school. Multiply that by 1,000. If every parent could pick any school, any curriculum, any combination with ESAs that they wanted, you've got that competition. What do parents think of most when they're picking a school? Is it the Olympic-sized swimming pool? Is it the Taj Mahal admin building? They're thinking of the teachers. Teachers are the #1 draw. I'm not just like school choice. I think it should be teacher choice. That's where I think, with parental choice in education, that's where we're going. And if you have to compete for students, how do you think teachers are going to be treated? Better or worse? Much better. In Japan, for example, teachers are paid like rock stars. They actually make the same as their baseball players, rock stars, because parents value education. We in the United States do not value education any less than the Japanese, and we live that every day. The problem is we have these stupid step and ladder pay scales that, by the way, work against teachers. They are driven to churn and burn, so as early as 2 years, certainly by 5 years, you spit teachers out. So guess what? We have to get new teachers and pay them down here. It's very rare that you have a teacher up here. So the system is rigged against good teachers. I'm talking about good quality teachers. Rigged against good teachers. Because why would you put up with it when you could go to the private sector, compete, and be treated like the true professional you are? What would happen to administrative salaries? Listen, administrators, I don't want to bash on administrators. Great administrators could be worth their weight in gold. Because it relieves teachers from doing the paperwork and all the admin. However, teachers and administrators are the same percentage of a school staff. In some places, there are more administrators than teachers. That's how teachers are valued. In a competitive environment, you would be paid more, you would be valued more, and you would have more job satisfaction. It wouldn't be checking the workbox, count the fingers and toes doing math class. So, which leads into merit pay. One of the best programs that I've seen to prevent favoritism in gaming is a 4-prong series where multiple measures that are real, not this, they did a workbook, they feel good about this, actual student learning growth. Multiple measures of that, and you have external evaluators come in. So you don't have that petty stuff. So that has actually worked in the UK. DC actually had a great version of that. And the Teacher Advancement Program, they just call it TAP now. It's a private program. They do a good job. All right, we have 2 minutes. If I don't get to your question, I will stay and answer all of your questions. And if you don't mind, I'd like to jump over to this side of the room because I know you ladies have been waiting so patiently. Yes, you had a question. Yes.
Hi, my name is Gabby. I actually went to a charter school in Arizona. So, yeah, I'm super into that because, there's obviously a huge debate with that right now. And the thing that I run into the most when I talk about charter schools or private schools and school choice, people will point to a Primavera or something like that, or the 1 or 2 charter schools that were for-profit and took money or this, and that. So how do you combat the argument of a lack of transparency, or when people point to, certain private or, charter schools that failed or scammed the students?
That's a great question. We're hearing that more and more. What you wouldn't know from the present tenor of the debate is that, where the idea of charter schools came from? It was a self-identified socialist who was an education graduate, taught in the Graduate School of Education at Amherst, UMass Amherst. And he thought it would be better for teachers. The great thing about charter schools or private schools, and I don't care if they're for-profit, not-for-profit, That's irrelevant. Wouldn't it be great that everybody could make a living? So I have to stop now, but the thing is that choice schools close. Government schools stay open, we fund more and more, and that's the biggest drag on our education system today. Thank you all so much for coming. Like I said, I'll stay and answer all your questions. Thank you.